Sister, keep this patient map above 75. Thank you. Hello, senior staff. Can you help me? I want to know what the map is and how can I find map in this monitor? In this monitor shows systolic BP is 120 millimeters of mercury and diastolic BP is 80 millimeters of mercury. MAP is 93 millimeters of mercury. In this monitor shows systolic BP is 106 millimeters of mercury and diastolic BP is 63 millimeters of mercury. MAPI is 79 millimeters of mercury. Blood pressure is the measure of the pressure developed against the wall of the arteries by the circulating blood. It is the measure of the pressure of the blood in the major arteries during the systole and diastole stages of the cardiac cycle. It is also called the systemic arterial pressure. It is measured in millimeters of mercury. It is a very important physiological parameter measured to determine the health condition of an individual. Blood pressure together with heart sound is an indicator of the condition of the cardiovascular system. Any abnormalities in these indicate that the patient is suffering from one or more cardiovascular diseases. The blood pressure is expressed as systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. The normal blood pressure of a human is 120/80 systolic diastolic millimeters of mercury. The instrument used to measure human blood pressure is called a sphygmomanometer. Mean arterial pressure, MAP, is a measure of the average blood pressure in an individual during a single cardiac cycle. It is related to the systolic and diastolic blood pressure readings, but also accounts for the blood flow and resistance. MAP can be calculated by using the formula MAP equals cardiac output times systemic vascular resistance plus central venous pressure. In the normal patient, the arterial mean pressure MAP stands between systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. If blood pressure 120/80 millimeters of mercury, mean arterial pressure is 93 millimeters of mercury. This graph shows MAP in red line. Normally, one cardiac cycle represents 1.2 seconds time duration, and systolic duration is 0.3 seconds, and diastolic phase is 0.9 seconds. That represents 1/3 for systolic phase and 2/3 for diastolic phase. Mean arterial pressure equals 1/3 systolic pressure plus 2/3 diastolic pressure. Mean arterial pressure equals 1/3 systolic pressure minus diastolic pressure plus diastolic pressure. Mean arterial pressure equals 1/3 pulse pressure plus diastolic pressure. Pulse pressure is the difference between systolic and diastolic blood pressure. It is measured in millimeters of mercury. Millimeters of mercury. Pulse pressure represents the force that the heart generates each time it contracts. In most circumstances, normal pulse pressure is less than 41 millimeters of mercury. Pulse pressure tends to increase as you get older, and this number can also be an indicator of health problems before you develop symptoms. The normal range of MAP is 70 to 100 millimeters of mercury. To perfuse vital organs requires the maintenance of a minimum MAP of 60 millimeters of mercury. If MAP drops below this point for an extended period, end organ manifestations such as ischemia and infarction can occur. If the MAP drops significantly, blood will not be able to perfuse cerebral tissues. There will be a loss of consciousness, and neuronal death will quickly ensue. The body has several protective mechanisms to regulate MAP and ensure that a sufficient level of perfusion is maintained for the function of all organs. A high mean arterial pressure, MAP, is anything over 100 millimeters of mercury, indicating elevated pressure in the arteries. This can lead to conditions such as heart attack, stroke, and advanced heart disease. When the MAP is above 105 millimeters of mercury, it puts stress on the heart and can cause fatty deposits to build up in the arteries.